Marvel Comics. Crossing into Krynn, I am the master of technology. Chapter 61. I think this solution is still not feasible. You must know that our company has been flaunting an independent and high-end route since its establishment. If we become an agent now, I am afraid that some current users will do something bad to us, senses. At this time, another senior executive also spoke. Okay, let's leave it like this for now. I already have an idea. I believe this time may be an opportunity for us. At this moment, Jobs said with firm eyes. After listening to what the boss said, the managers did not continue talking, but simply dismissed the meeting. Similar situations like this are going on at the same time in all parts of the country and in all walks of life. After all, now that the computer market is saturated, mobile phones are the next step that every manufacturer wants to enter, or it has already entered, and now that pioneer technology has intervened, many people are waiting and watching. Hesitate. I don't know whether I should continue to make my own products, or give up the current peace of mind and become an agent. At the same time, as time passes, Pioneer Technology's second press conference is also proceeding in an orderly manner, and the day of the press conference has arrived in an instant. Wednesday. With the wind and sunshine, the sun slowly shines on the earth. At this moment, in a square in Miami, countless media and audiences have gathered here, just to witness the miracle of the first press conference again. Because this time in the promotion of Pioneer Technology, not only the mobile phone can be transformed into a buttonless mobile phone that has never been seen before, but there is even 3D projection technology that only exists in science fiction. Therefore, countless people traveled thousands of miles across the city to come to the city of Miami. Even because of Pioneer Technology's first-hand press conference, the number of local tourists from outside has increased significantly. Even the local GPD this year can even be doubled. This makes Congressman Kennedy and the governor of Florida unable to help, but I can't even close my mouth when I smile. And the other side, with all the media eagerly looking forward to it, the press conference officially began, but this time everyone was a little disappointed, because this time the organizers' speakers did not include President Krynn, replaced by a tall and voluptuous female vice president. And as the spotlight turned on, Lisa walked out in full dress to everyone's surprised gazes. At this moment, sitting in the auditorium in front of her were dozens of companies and news media from related industries, and tens of thousands of tourists came to watch outside the venue. At this moment, even Lisa, who had experienced many battles, couldn't help but feel a little nervous. We welcome elites from all walks of life, business representatives, journalists from the news media, and fans who support our pioneering technology. My name is Lisa. I am the main business person in charge of external publicity and the vice president of Pioneer Technology Company. Here, I would like to thank our chairman, Mr. Krynn, for giving me such an opportunity to represent the entire Pioneer Technology, standing up to face the arrival of all friends, and thanking everyone for their trust in us, and for I have traveled thousands of miles to attend the first launch of our pioneering technology in person. After more than a month of training in the sales department, she now uses a clear voice and speaks clearly and methodically to every audience in front with a smile. In this press conference, we will use this to introduce to you the main content and related functions of our big product. Secondly, this time I want to thank everyone for coming to the scene and supporting our Pioneer Technology. So we decided to give everyone who comes to the event a benefit, that is, our Pioneer Technology Company will provide 10,000 Pioneer-class smartphones in stock and sell them at a 20% discount. Believe me, its price will definitely be far lower than any other channel, and it will also make you feel that it is worth your money. After Lisa finished talking about the welfare, everyone present could not help but usher in a wave of cheers. You know, in addition to watching Pioneer Technology's press conference, they also want to buy a ready-made mobile phone from Pioneer Technology Company, and now there is a 20% discount, which is simply a complete benefit. Then, I won't say any more, and now I'll introduce our first product. Then after finishing speaking with a smile, Lisa clapped her hands together. Everyone immediately felt that the surrounding scenery suddenly changed. Suddenly, everyone came to the Sky City from the original square. Surrounded by gorgeous ancient buildings, houses that only existed in myths appeared in front of everyone for the first time. And even people at the edge of the square can see the clouds that are constantly flowing as the wind blows at the edge of the Sky City, as well as the real land beneath their feet. At this moment, the sudden change caused people in the entire venue to commotion. As you can see, you are now in the Sky City environment constructed by the 3D holographic projection of Pioneer Technology's first product at this conference. Although you are now on the Sky City, you are still on the original ground, so please don't panic. You can try to slowly feel these pictures and scenes. But then Lisa's voice sounded, and everyone became quiet. Wow, it's true. It's amazing. I feel like my feet are still on the same ground, but my eyes tell me that I'm above the sky. Oh my god, is this the legendary city in the sky? It's so beautiful. God, I wish I could live here. Following Lisa's guidance, people at the scene also began to feel the scene brought to them by the 3D holographic projection. At this moment, everyone is observing everything around them with their naked eyes, wanting to carefully see what the differences and loopholes are. But as they thought, it was so perfect that if it wasn't out of reach, they would even feel like they really appeared in the sky. And this scene was also broadcast to all over the world by the live broadcast footage. After seeing this scene, every audience member couldn't help but feel envious and hated themselves for not making up their mind to watch it live earlier. Missed the opportunity to see the legendary building up close. Next is the Parthenon, Mount Olympus, the Garden of Eden, the fairy tale world. At this moment, with the appearance of mythical scenes one after another, everyone felt an unprecedented inner and spiritual satisfaction and sublimation. Those legendary scenic spots and places were completely restored in front of them. This moment passed for a long time, but it was also very short. Even after the 3D holographic projection at the scene was turned off for a long time, everyone was still unable to escape the unprecedented shock brought by the holographic projection for a long time. I believe that at this moment everyone has a very intuitive understanding of our 3D holographic projection equipment. In the future, whether it is our doctor's in-depth research on human anatomy, our designers can more intuitively design the decoration effect that customers want, or architects. Moreover, it also has customized desktop models, home models, etc. It can be directly connected to the internet. In other words, it is equivalent to a computer in itself, a brand new intelligent platform. With it, you can stand, sit or even lie down to work, chat with people, go to the movies, play games. As Lisa introduced various scenarios, diagrams of human organs, application treatments before various surgeries, and case injury analysis appeared in the air beside the main podium. There are also building decoration styles and architectural designs. At this moment, the entire scene was completely silent from beginning to end. After all the scenes were introduced, thunderous applause broke out in the venue. Not to mention the subsequent products, 3D holographic projection alone is revolutionary for many industries. In response to these reactions at the scene, Lisa still maintained a professional smile, and this reaction was naturally expected by her. You know, before getting this video, she was no less shocked than they were. So we've seen the effect. What's the selling price? This is the focus of today. 3D holographic projection is composed of tiny cubic devices. It is arranged according to the usage area and the on-site environment. A cube as small as my hand can be used in an environment of 50 square meters. The price is $5,000 each. 1-year replacement package, 3-year warranty. For users who choose our Pioneer technology, they will completely solve their worries. And with a one-time purchase of $100,000, you will enjoy customized and exclusive scene services. Whether you want the Louvre, the Golden City, the Royal Palace or the Temple, you can be satisfied. After Lisa briefly introduced the 3D holographic projection product, its sales price and benefits. At this moment, the number of viewers of those global broadcasts is also beginning to increase, and more people are introduced by friends or promoted. After seeing the news on TV, he was even more shocked. No one would have thought that such a sophisticated thing could cost just a few $1,000s. You must know that it can completely take the high-end route. Even so, the supply will exceed the demand, and countless industries and companies will buy it as if they are giving away money. Pioneer Technology actually set this price. The president of Apple and several accompanying executives who were present were also extremely shocked by what was happening. They might have imagined that 3D holographic projection could already be displayed, but what they didn't expect was that the so-called 3D holographic projection was actually made by a small cube in Lisa's hand that was not even as big as a Rubik's Cube. At this moment, they discovered that Pioneer Technology Company's external publicity was not overly publicized but was clearly too low-key. It only showed the tip of the iceberg of the equipment in front of me. This is simply shocking. Such a huge data stream requires all devices to be synchronized without frame drops. What kind of computing power, chips and signal transmission are required to achieve this? Quote, after seeing the small cube that Lisa showed to everyone, Apple's research director couldn't help but murmured in astonishment. You must know that if you want to 100% restore the real world, you can do it, but it requires extremely large memory and chip processing to do it. To achieve the current level, a conservative estimate would require several terabytes or even dozens of terabytes of memory. If this is true, doesn't it mean? The entourage on the other side, after seeing that Pioneer Technology actually produced a 3D holographic projection, suddenly remembered something and spoke. Yes, after hearing what he said, Jobs nodded, took a deep breath, and said heavily. At this moment, this kind of thought is happening to all the presidents present and those who are not there for various reasons. And, in order to thank the representatives of major companies and fans present for their visit and support. To make our press conference go smoothly, everyone present will be registered by Pioneer Technology and will be our most loyal VIP customers and partners in the future. Relevant scheduled sales and cooperation will be given priority to those who are doing it and their representative companies to cooperate with each other first. This is all just to thank everyone for their support of our Pioneer Technology. If Lisa's words before only shocked everyone, then it can be said that those who didn't come were so regretful that their intestines turned green, while those who came to the scene were so happy that they flew into the air. Among them, Jobs and others are especially represented. Although they are mainly engaged in the computer industry and do not need holographic projection, Lisa's words basically represent that if there is computer equipment in the future, or computer chips and the like will be sold in the same way. If they want to do it, they will also be given priority. They have no doubts about the credibility of Lisa's words, because a company, especially a large company that wants to become bigger and stronger, will pay special attention to the promises it makes to the public. The words, partner, and VIP, carry the most weight. Even if Pioneer Technology has any new products or product upgrades in the future, they will consider these partners first, not others. This made their trip worth it. At this moment, they no longer consider what brand to build. For God's sake, just be a good supplier partner, isn't it? Who would have trouble with green dollar bills? Okay, that's it for the introduction to 3D holographic projection. Next, I will show our second product from Pioneer Technology, a Pioneer class full touchscreen smartphone. Then, as Lisa's words fell, everyone saw the protagonist of this time, a Pioneer-level smartphone, projected beside Lisa. They saw that its appearance was completely different from other existing button phones, and its incomparable appearance, the metallic texture, beautiful and technological appearance, coupled with its smooth operation at startup, all brought a unique sense to the people at the scene. As the world's first new smartphone, it is equipped with an 8-core processor and a new generation AI Pioneer engine. The operating system is also the latest Pioneer operating system developed by our Pioneer Technology. The body itself has built-in storage such as 512 over 1G, 2G, 4G and can be selected, which fully meets the various uses of the public and enterprises. Coupled with 3 cameras including ultra-high pixels and ultra-concentrating, ultra-wide angle, and periscope telephoto, you can perfectly share the real-life scenery with friends around the world. The body itself is not only waterproof and drop-proof, but it also has a high-capacity battery that can be charged in 1 hour and has a standby time of 3 days. And everyone was shocked when Lisa demonstrated it in front of everyone through practical operations on the mobile phone and then used 3D holographic projection. Oh my God, it has several terabytes of memory. Is this a joke? Can that thing really be made? I'm just using a memory card of tens of megabytes. What does that 8-core processor mean? Is it very powerful? Let me just say that Pioneer Technology is definitely an alien technology company. Can any of these be researched by normal humans? This Pioneer Technology has only been founded a few years ago, right? Those old high-tech companies are not as powerful as him. It's too scary. For a time, with Lisa's continuous explanation of the functions of the mobile phone and the on-site function demonstration, the audience in front of the TV and the scene could not sit still, and everyone was discussing intensely. It can be said that in just 1 hour today, the shock they received was simply unparalleled in their lifetime. Everyone must be familiar with mobile phones. We all need to use them in our lives, such as making phone calls, sending messages, sharing life, checking information online, etc. Perhaps everyone's current definition of it is just the above, but believe me, Pioneer Mobile will change your perception of it. In the future, we will be committed to building a large-scale virtual shopping mall that integrates life, medical care, and commerce. It will allow you to choose new products without leaving home, and it can also use the built-in projection function to provide you with personal touch, selection of each product. And it has also prepared disaster warnings for everyone. It will use relevant technologies to provide you with accurate forecasts of various natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and typhoons. We have also prepared functions such as danger alarm and satellite phone alarm, which can ensure that no matter what the situation, as long as you encounter danger, you can contact the outside world for help in time. Quote. After Lisa introduced the functions of the mobile phone and even several minigames included with the mobile phone, the whole scene became excited again. Then after a few words to warm up to the situation at the scene. Under the leadership of Lisa, the conference venue has already welcomed the introduction of the third product, or the third technology, 4G network signal. And now, those real electronic product network giants also had their expressions condensed, and then looked at them with serious expressions. You must know that for them, network signals can be said to be their lifeblood, and they do not need to buy products from Pioneer Technology. But if the 4G network is real, then it is impossible for them to not use it. Otherwise, if your company's internet speed is slow and someone else's company's internet speed is fast, they will naturally not buy from you. And among the people present, especially the representative of Qualcomm in the United States, the face was the most serious, and even darkened to a certain extent. Because basically all companies are now using their 2G networks, and they have made billions of dollars in annual revenue relying on 2G network patent fees. It can be said that as long as the 2G network is still in use, those mobile phone merchants using the 2G network must pay them 65% of the price of the mobile phone for every mobile phone sold. 5 patent fees. For a 3,000 yuan mobile phone, they can charge 150 yuan in patent fees. Originally, they had already developed 3G and were preparing to announce it. Unexpectedly, Pioneer Technology skipped 3G and announced that it had developed a 4G network. This was simply a slap in Kai Guguo's face, so their company sent him to investigate the enemy's situation, hoping that everything was just a propaganda for Pioneer Technology. And now, as he watched the familiar 3D holographic projection light up again and the introduction and content of the 4G network, the man's heart sank again. He knows that unless his company starts to skip 4G and start developing 5G now, they will have no advantage at all. No, maybe we should just skip 5G and develop 6G. After all, when their company released 2G, they already had a prototype of the 3G network. Now, he doesn't believe that Pioneer Technology has no research on 5G. As I said before, the future era of 4G has arrived. At that time, everyone can easily watch landscape videos uploaded by users from all over the world without leaving home, and each video of several hundred megabytes can be downloaded in just a few seconds and can be watched online. Games, videos, movies, program research, software development, etc., with the help of high efficiency and low latency of 4G network, these will no longer be a dream. With the development of 4G, the era of Internet of Everything is coming, and everything will be connected to the Internet in the future. Let's stay tuned. As Lisa finished speaking, waves of applause once again erupted from the scene. Everyone felt that the extremely sci-fi future was coming through the scenes prepared in advance and the depiction using 3D virtual projection. High-tech operations such as unmanned driving, remote control, video, remote surgery, etc. are all depicted. Everyone also believes that with the support of 4G network, this day will never be far away. Okay, as usual, I will answer your questions. In the next half hour, if everyone on the scene has any questions, you can ask them. After all, These are emerging products, and there must be some imperfect explanations, so Lisa pointed them out to everyone. Hello, I would like to ask, are these 3 products independently developed by Pioneer Technology? How long did it take? At this time, a female reporter at the scene also stood up at Lisa's signal, and then asked a question. Of course we developed it independently. Not only now, but also in the future, the products released by Pioneer Technology will only be independently developed by us and will not be borrowed from others. As for the time-consuming issue, because I am not in the technical department, I don't know much about it, but it will definitely take several years. Of course, this is also thanks to the hard work of our technical department, who worked overtime day and night for these products, which led to our current success. Lisa responded calmly to reporters' questions with a smile. Hello, my question is about the PPT just now. I want to ask, the pictures that appeared in the video just now include technologies such as driverless driving, remote control, and unmanned medical cabins. They are all expensive. Will the company develop it in the future? This time the question was asked by a reporter who was obviously a bit mature. He found that many of the videos about future technologies had mature ideas. If a company didn't have ideas about these, it would be difficult to do so. Mature and seemingly flawless videos existed, so he asked the question. This issue also worried the representatives of high-tech R&D and medical equipment present. After Pioneer Technology showed a strong enough stance to intervene in the medical and communications industries, they did not want another such giant in their industry. This involves company secrets, but I can give a general reply. With Pioneer Technology, anything is possible. This time, Lisa smiled mysteriously and then replied. Hello, I am a representative of *** mobile phone company. My question is if I want to cooperate with your company, regarding products, I would like to ask, what is your company's production capacity? Since it is such an advanced thing, it must have huge order volume. Then will your company consider cooperating with other manufacturers to produce accessories? After Lisa called her name, a representative from a mobile phone company also stood up and asked the question that all the company representatives present were most concerned about. As of now, we are not considering cooperating with other manufacturers for production. We are responsible for processing both the core accessories and spare parts of Pioneer Technology's smartphones. As for production capacity, we don't have to worry about it because we have just completed the acquisition of 20 production lines to provide all-round sales of smartphones. Quote, in the future, it is also expected to complete the acquisition of a total of 50 large electronics factories in major regions around the world this quarter. So you don't have to worry at all. After hearing the man's words, Lisa replied with the same smile. This answer also disappointed some representatives of electronics manufacturers present. If they can win orders from Pioneer Technology, they can even be sure that they will not have to worry about profits in the next 10 years. It's a pity that now it seems that people have extremely high confidentiality standards on the internal parts of mobile phones. In the next half hour, as Lisa continued to answer everyone's questions, time flew by. At this point, the press conference ended successfully after Lisa announced the end. And Lisa finally breathed a sigh of relief as the meeting ended. The other customers in the venue had no intention of taking a break. Everyone went crazy and headed straight to the cooperation negotiation area and on-site order trading area on the first floor of the company. In the end, the press conference ended completely, but for the world, today is the beginning of Pioneer Technology's new products that detonate the world. At this moment, with the end of the press conference, various words about buttonless smartphones, virtual projections, and the terrifying restored photos that Lisa showed during the press conference began to appear on the internet. That is, these scenes are simply outrageous. People from all walks of life couldn't help but be shocked after seeing it. Buttonless smartphone. Is this a fake? There are no mobile phones nowadays that don't need buttons. It's a liar and a hype at first sight. It's so funny, what a hype. Didn't you see that these reporters have personally tested it? And there is also the CEO of Apple. If it was fake, it would have been exposed long ago. Besides, how can so many media outlets collectively commit fraud? Pioneer, do you think a company as big as technology can survive such a scandal? Do you really think it is worthless? What you said above is right. This kind of hype is completely meaningless. Even if there is only one to buy, it has already made Pioneer Technology both famous and wealthy. It will be too obvious to have this kind of fake hype again, so it must be true. Thank God, I can still experience this kind of black technology that only exists in comic books in my lifetime. Speaking of which, the buttons are gone. Can the operation still work? These unconventional mobile phone manufacturers are the most annoying. Why not make mobile phones well? If you have to make these fancy things, I don't care about you, I am used to button phones, anyway. I will not buy this phone from Pioneer Technology. It's best for those upstairs to remember what you said today. Do you know the value of 1 terabyte of memory in a mobile phone? Do you know the practicality of running memory, virtual projection and real-time alarm functions? It turns out that everywhere is dangerous now. I usually do it at night. I don't dare to walk on the street, for fear of being kidnapped if I don't pay attention, and I can't even save my life in time. Now I finally have a way to save my life. I hope Pioneer Technology will launch a guard robot soon, so that I can go out at night just like during the day. Played. It's so shocking. I didn't expect to be able to see virtual projections. I strongly recommend that Pioneer Technology Company research a somatosensory warehouse. If there is no time, they can also develop a somatosensory instrument that can interact with virtual images in advance. It is best if it can be used by users can choose the instrument for their somatosensory parts. Upstairs, I heard your plan in the Atlantic Ocean. I support upstairs. I hope Pioneer Technology will open the virtual projection module as soon as possible so that we can DIY it ourselves. This way we can at least play the game faster. No problem. Anyway, according to what the vice president of Pioneer Technology said, virtual projection can also play movies and play games. These are enough for me. My inventory is already ready. Upstairs, brother, please. Please, comma. Discussions similar to the above are almost endless in every country's own network. It can be said that as long as there is a network, you can see discussions about Pioneer mobile phones and virtual projections almost anywhere. At this time, with the emergence of a software called Little Blue Bird, everyone discovered that this software could be more convenient than website discussion. Users around the world could register accounts here, and then post your updates for the world to see. Moreover, you can chat without any sense of distance. Even two transnational users who do not understand each other's language at all can still chat without any communication barriers with the help of the software's translation. As users continued to spread the word, people gradually began to gather here. At this moment, with the end of the press conference, Krynn no longer needs to worry about a series of subsequent product sales matters. Now that Lisa has stepped forward to take charge, he feels much more relaxed. It's just that Krynn is relaxed here, but Lisa is tired. With the end of the previous press conference, dozens of large and medium-sized companies from all over the country, and even national representatives have found Lisa and want it as necessary to conduct in-depth strategic cooperation on the products of Pioneer Technology Company. In exchange for political concessions and compromises, greater profits can be made from the product. All in all, this is mutually beneficial for both parties. Krynn and the others have gained a steady stream of funds and reputation, and those companies and countries have also received the customized technology products they want, which will play a full role in their future development. At this moment, Pioneer Technology's smart products are more like a big storm, constantly sweeping the world. Wherever it passes, even Microsoft, Stark Group and those old technology giants have to bow their heads and retreat. For a time, Pioneer Technology's limelight is even greater. It's perfect. At the same time, on the other side, in a secret base. This is the latest biological and chemical weapon released by the US military on the battlefield. It is incredibly powerful and has already solved many militarized towns for them. According to their plan, the next step is to prepare to release it on the Syrian battlefield. According to my investigation, this biological weapon is a biological weapon jointly developed by the military and Pioneer Technology Company, codenamed TOOO Tyrant. According to the information I have obtained, they are likely to use Pioneer Technology Company as the lead in the next step. The hardliners in the military, led by Ross, and the Democrats in the government, led by Kennedy, have legislated legalized human experimentation projects on prisoners in prisons. At this time, a red-haired woman with a dashing figure and a very energetic look took out a USB flash drive from her body and handed it to the man sitting at the table, and then spoke. Pioneer Technology Company. I didn't expect that after they gave the world a big surprise a few months ago, they would now secretly come up with another surprise. Their status as an arms company must have been approved by the military. It seems that this pioneering technology company had already started a biological weapons project before, and then approached the military. After the two got together, the military gave them approval. After taking the USB flash drive provided by his newly recruited capable subordinate, the man wearing a one-eyed blindfold immediately plugged it into his computer. After the initial antivirus test confirmed that it was correct, the man only then did I start to look at the videos and graphic materials inside. It can be said that the materials are very similar. There are not only battlefield videos but also close-up videos of the so-called tyrant within the military. It can be imagined that the photographer has definitely been deeply involved. Sneaked into the military camp and obtained this information. So, what's next? Are they going to be regulated? After hearing what her boss said, Natasha immediately asked. Yes, if such a weapon is allowed to develop, it will be too dangerous. Natasha, I need you to find a way to sneak into Pioneer Technology Company. According to intelligence, they have a 40-story underground building on an island in Miami. Quote. And there are extremely tight guards guarding it around the clock. I seriously suspect that this is their secret underground laboratory. I need you to sneak in, get first-hand information, and then send it back. We will decide how to deal with them based on the situation. After thinking for a while, the man then said with a serious expression to Natasha in front of him, the top agent from the famous Red Room of the Soviet Union. This was also the top ace agent he had worked so hard to recruit. To carry out a difficult latent mission like this, the selection of candidates was very difficult. Otherwise, Natasha wouldn't have become his right-hand man not long after arriving at S.H.I.E.L.D. Clear. After hearing the man's order, Natasha immediately turned around and walked out. For her now, the only purpose of living is to fight crime and maintain world peace. On the other hand, with pioneer technology emerging in front of the world, they have now completely established a foothold. At this time, more and more companies came to discuss cooperation. Among them are the remaining 6 major pharmaceutical companies in the United States. Mr. Krynn, we have always had a friendly attitude toward your company. This time we came to visit. One of us wants to be the agent for your company's medical virtual projection equipment, and the other wants to be the agent for your company's medical virtual projection equipment. One is that I want to have in-depth cooperation with your company. Led by the secretary, several people quickly met Krynn in the conference room, and Laszlo Novartis, the president of Novartis Pharmaceuticals, spoke proactively and friendly. I believe this. Otherwise, representatives from pharmaceutical companies like Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer wouldn't have come to buy me before. After listening to what the other party said, Krynn also said calmly with a smile on his face. Krynn had no doubts about their overtures. Otherwise, if Alex, the former president of Johnson & Johnson, had roped in 6 of their pharmaceutical companies and gathered the power of the world's top 10 pharmaceutical companies to sanction him, he would have been a little embarrassed. Tricky. After all, no matter how powerful Dubai is, it is just a medical testing machine. In order to open the surgical function, it needs permission from the US FDA. After a lot of back and forth, coupled with the influence of these 10 major companies, the US government is stuck. It took them several years for FDA certification, so there was no problem at all. And as a result, his company will not successfully develop to its current scale. It's just that Xiaohe failed because they didn't have such big ambitions, so the company's development was naturally not as big as the ones that came to trouble him before. But to Krynn, all this doesn't matter. No matter how good the other party is, it all depends on their next actions. If the lion opens his mouth or something, Krynn can only smile in return. They are just some clowns who have been pushed forward. As long as their interests are damaged at all, they have to stand up and solve the problem. To put it simply, the pattern is too small. Compared to them, each of us here can truly represent our company. We also know that the only way to develop is through win-win cooperation. As for the medical equipment and medicines related to the company here, coupled with the scanning and testing of your company Dubai, if we have more in-depth cooperation in the future, if we are lucky enough to cooperate to develop a real medical robot, this will be something that truly benefits the public. A true win-win situation. After hearing that Krynn had no prejudice against them, the leader, Laszlo Novartis, also spoke immediately. The purpose of their visit this time is obviously to see the huge role of virtual projection in medical treatment. Imagine a patient who needs surgery, and before that, Dubai first scans the patient's whole body and models it. Then the virtual projection will give a perfect one-to-one reproduction. At this time, the doctor will model and operate it, and then start to slowly zoom in and observe. This is simply an artifact of surgery. And if all this is completed by a robot that has medical knowledge and 100% execution ability, it will be even more shocking and perfect. Win-win is of course no problem. In fact, it is not only the private internal culture of our company, but also the public declaration. What I emphasize is to benefit society, give back to the people, and bring a better life. Of course, these are inseparable from the joint maintenance of several people and the company behind them, but I think we need to study some cooperation methods and details. At this moment, Krynn also spoke immediately. Of course, this is a draft agreement jointly drawn up by several of our companies. Mr. Krynn, you can take a look at it first. A lot of it is a little rough and can be discussed in a timely manner. After hearing Krynn's reply, Laszlo Novartis and the presidents breathed a sigh of relief. Then Laszlo took out a cooperation agreement and handed it to Krynn. It can be said that they are fully prepared for this cooperation. Now the situation is stronger than the people. The equipment aspect has been forcibly taken over by Pioneer Technology Company. Although they can rely on the previously sold equipment to rest on their laurels and continue to operate in the pharmaceutical field. But with Pioneer Technology's press conference this time, they were all afraid, worried that it would drag on any longer. Good guys, don't really enter the pharmaceutical industry and come up with any special medicines or the like. Although a company wants to develop these drugs from scratch, it will take only a few years and decades. But with such a robot, several versions of smartphones and network signals, and a virtual projection that I had never heard of before, what is impossible? So the few remaining company executives who had not yet had any conflicts with Krynn gathered together in an instant and tried to find a way to board the aircraft carrier battleship Pioneer Technology in advance. To this end, they have even prepared $30 billion each, and Laszlo Novartis, as the sponsor, has invested $50 billion totaling $200 billion, and wants to cooperate with Pioneer Technology. You must know that these are real cash flows. No matter where you invest, there are countless money-making projects. If you want to get them to invest, now they are rushing to find Krynn with this huge sum of money. And Chu asked them to invest. And there is a chance of rejection. It might be a bit ridiculous to say it out loud, but if you want to throw money at others, others will still disagree. Well, I'm very sincere. I'd say you guys are much better than Alex's idiots. After reading the entire 2-page simple text contract, Krynn nodded and smiled at them. After finishing speaking, he changed the subject and said, only $200 billion will be used to establish new Pioneer Pharmaceutical Company. You want 100% 49 shares or a bit too much? Mr. Krynn, this is not $200 billion of real estate. You must know that this is cash flow. Even for several of our companies, it is very difficult to gather so much cash flow at once. It can be said that it is full of sincerity. And we don't want to have any ideas about this new company. You have to know that 49% of the shares, the 6 of us only have 8% of the shares on average. We can't do anything at all, and we can't do anything. I just want a guarantee. After hearing that Krynn had problems with the allocation of shares in their plan, Laszlo immediately took the initiative to speak. You know, using $200 billion to exchange for 49% of the shares of a newly founded company is definitely a big step back. You must know that Pfizer's market value is only about $200 billion now. If they really want to work together, they can fully acquire this company. But now he was rejected by Krynn and asked for too much. Believe me, with such a big gap in the pharmaceutical industry, you don't really think I only care about medical equipment, right? You must know that just a small and medium-sized country has a pharmaceutical market with a potential of hundreds of billions, let alone dozens of populous countries such as the East, India, the Soviet Union, the United States, and Indonesia, each of which has trillions of dollars. There is a huge market waiting to be developed. And as a business, would I give up on this? Since you guys have come here on your own initiative, let me tell you some news in advance. The new drug has been successful, and its effect will definitely exceed your expectations. By then, most diseases in the world will be vulnerable to it, and now I give you an opportunity, $200 billion, 15% of the shares, you can allocate it yourself. I don't care whether we cooperate or maintain the current relationship, as long as you don't be like those fools who jump out to look for trouble. When he heard what Laszlo wanted to explain, Krynn stood up directly and spoke to several people with great confidence. That's right, the T0 drug has been completely developed and is now in the final review stage. Under Kennedy's operation and the military's call, everything is expedited. Now as long as it passes the final FDA clinical trial, it will be officially launched, and then pioneer technology will rise again. As for the few people in front of him who wanted to cooperate, Krynn only chose to give them a chance because the agreement they gave contained indeed great compromises and concessions. Otherwise, there will be no shares of these 15 points, just 8 points, do you want it or not? As Kylian's words fell, everyone present now looked embarrassed, with a tasteless expression, and it was a pity to throw away the food if it was tasteless. On the one hand, I feel that if we don't get on the big ship of pioneer technology this time and refuse, then there will be this conflict and the other party will not even cooperate with them. On the other hand, I feel that only 15 points of $200 billion is really a loss to my grandma's family. For a moment, everyone's eyebrows exchanged, and they all felt a headache. I'll wait for you in the office next door. After you've discussed it, you can ask the secretary at the door to call me. Seeing that several people couldn't discuss it because he was here, Krynn stood up directly, and after speaking to everyone, he walked out of the door. And it was after Krynn left that Laszlo and other presidents began to discuss it one by one. Laszlo, what now? Looking at him, it's obvious that he has convinced us. What can be done about this? Technology is everything. Now the technology is in the hands of others. Whether you want to be stuck or not is not a matter of words. None of this is important, didn't you hear? He just said that he has developed a new drug that can solve most diseases. This is the key, okay. Isn't this impossible? What kind of medicine can do this? Even Einstein was alive, right? It's hard to say. Look at his confident look just now. I bet he wasn't lying to us. He really has that confidence and confidence. Then what should we do? If this is the case, our original idea of stepping back and staying out of the matter if we don't succeed will be in vain. When he really releases the drug, one of us will have to change careers. For a time, along with Kylian's attitude and the mysterious new medicine, the originally Buddhist thoughts of several CEOs also became anxious for a while. For them, as long as the company doesn't lose money, develop steadily, and take things as they come, that's fine. And now, let alone developing steadily, it would be a good thing not to be squeezed out and go bankrupt. How about agreeing? At this time, Levine Cohen, the president of AstraZeneca, the last of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies, spoke softly. After all, according to the current development trend of pioneer technology, their final outcome will be just like those small pharmaceutical companies they acquired, being acquired or liquidated. Hey, that's all. After all, people can even research Baymax. Every time I see that thing, I wonder, is this really something that can be researched with today's technology? But there is nothing we can do. People's technology is great. If we fall behind, we will be beaten. Normal market competition will lead to elimination. After hearing Levin Cohen's proposal, another half-white-haired president sighed. Now that he is getting old, he will retire in a few years, and he just wants to hand over the company completely from his own hands to his children. As for other hard work in progress, he has no idea at all. There is none left. Hey, I can agree, but I ask to see his so-called products after signing the contract. Even if you lose, you must lose clearly. As others agreed one after another, the last CEO who was still insisting had no choice but to express his final insistence after seeing the general trend. Of course, after all, this amount of money is not a small amount. Since we want to invest, as investors, we should also know the investment projects. This time, Few people said anything to the man's words, but nodded in agreement. Then Killian pushed the door open again and entered. "Mr. Killian, we agree to your request, but please allow us to put forward a condition. Otherwise, I think these old friends of mine won't be able to sleep peacefully when I go back to bed." Everyone compromised with Killian, and one of the representatives, Laszlo, said with a wry smile. Certainly. Looking at the defeated faces in front of him, Killian almost knew what their request was. After all, he didn't believe they wouldn't bite the bait he had put so big before. Then, just as Killian thought, Laszlo proposed to let them take a look at the magic medicine that Killian said. In order to show sincerity, a cooperation agreement was signed on the spot in the presence of lawyers from both parties. The 200 billion United States dollars in funds will also arrive by the next day. Then several people were taken to a medical laboratory by Killian. Inside, there were more than a dozen people who were suffering from various serious diseases and were in agony or even hopeless. And they only came with the last glimmer of hope after seeing the number of volunteers for clinical trials announced by a pharmaceutical company affiliated with Pioneer Technology and claiming that it could treat many major diseases. After all, Pioneer Technology can develop all kinds of black technologies, especially future robots like Baymax, so it shouldn't be impossible to treat their diseases. How is it now? At this time, Killian, who brought several presidents to the observation room from the exclusive passage, asked Samuel, the person in charge, in front of him. "Boss, all the volunteers are in place. Here is the list of personnel and related information, including AIDS, tumors, gastric cancer, early, middle and late esophageal cancer, as well as diabetes, uremia, leukemia, etc., covering almost all kinds of diseases. Such a serious disease globally and internationally. In terms of benefits, each volunteer who participates in the clinical trial will receive a one-time payment of 10,000 United States dollars. If he agrees to our follow-up survey later, it will be increased to 15,000 United States dollars per year." Everyone here agrees. Got this. After hearing Killian's question, Samuel explained directly. After all, most of these people are deformed people who have been devastated by diseases. Not to mention such generous rewards, they would still be willing to come even if they didn't. However, after hearing that Killian's clinical trial had treated so many patients with severe diseases, including terminal cancer and AIDS, several CEOs who knew medicine in the first place couldn't help but look at each other. Before they came here, they thought that what Killian said could cure most diseases, which were minor symptoms such as colds and fevers. At best, it could only cure stomach problems and headaches. But what they didn't expect was that they saw such a scene as soon as they arrived. All kinds of patients, almost all the types they had seen in their lives, were seen at once. Even some of them still have the treatment retention needles on their bodies, and a large part of their bodies have had quail-sized pimples in varying degrees due to various treatments. Even the well-informed people were still a little touched when they suddenly saw this scene. It's just that they didn't say anything, as long as they confirmed that these people were real patients and not the trustees invited by Pioneer Technology. Then the president at the end took out his cell phone and sent a message after looking at the volunteers on the list. Killian saw this and did nothing to stop it. Every message you want to send out after entering Pioneer Technology will be screened and filtered by Dubai, and any sensitive words will be intercepted in time. Not to mention that he had already seen the message sent by the other party through the glasses he was wearing. Good, let's get started. After smiling slightly, Killian spoke to Samuel in front of him. Immediately after receiving Killian's instructions, Samuel walked through the passage on the side and walked into the clinic wearing a white coat. This time, a total of 3 patients with AIDS, gastric cancer, and uremia, all in advanced stages, were brought to the hospital bed by several nurses. After affixing various medical testing instruments, Samuel officially entered them. Immediately after, he used fingerprint verification to unlock the low-temperature freezer placed on the table. With a solemn look on his face, there was a beep sound, and bursts of white low-temperature thick fog oozed out of it. Opened out. What came into view inside was several tubes of T-virus filled with blue liquid, and lying next to them were syringes dedicated to the T-virus. A syringe that looks like a nail gun, and the top of it is also blank. Just by looking at it, everyone knows that it needs to be filled with canned liquid. After seeing this scene, several CEOs couldn't help but admire that a syringe could produce so many flowers. If they were volunteers, I'm afraid they would feel confident after seeing such technologically advanced equipment. There may be a slight pain next. Please get ready, I'm going to start the injection. After the T-virus tube was firmly installed on the syringe, Samuel said to the patient in front of him. Haha, believe me, I have long been immune to the pain I have endured in my life. I can just come as I please. After hearing what Samuel said, the man said with a wry smile. At this time, the man's immune system has been destroyed by the late stage of AIDS, which has resulted in his whole body being as thin as firewood, and his body is covered with bruises and bruises. At a glance, some people may even think that he looks like a mummy. But Samuel, who had long been accustomed to seeing this kind of scene, just smiled slightly, and then saw Samuel inside pointing the syringe upward, pushing out the air in the syringe, and then putting the T-virus inside. The syringe gently injected into the patient's body. Mr. Killian, the medicine you are talking about is not the potion just now, right? Then what's the point of bringing us over? Let us come over to watch the injection process. Or do we have to invite us to watch every treatment session? After seeing that Samuel had finished the injection, the patient had no other reaction, and a CEO on the side couldn't help but ask. After all, they also realized at this time that since it is a drug injection, it will definitely take time. Even for patients with advanced AIDS in front of them, it is not impossible to have a treatment period of several years. And I don't know how long it took until the medicine Killian mentioned cured this man. Or is this drug really effective in improving the immunity of the late-stage AIDS patient in front of me? This is too magical. For a moment, this idea only appeared in his mind for a moment, and then was thrown away by the man. Igor, calm down. Since Mr. Killian did this, he must have deep meaning. We can just watch quietly. After hearing Igor speak, Laszlo also spoke immediately. Haha, there's no need. Since President Igor can't restrain his doubts, I'll explain it to you. The first thing in the drug tube is the T-virus, T02, the latest drug developed by our pioneer technology. It is also the flagship product that will be sold to the outside world to cure various major diseases. Its main special ability is that after entering the organism, the T-virus will start to reproduce itself and fuse and assimilate with the host cell, and then integrate its own genetic material into the chromosome of the host cell to complete the purpose of long-term symbiosis. Once the fusion is successful, the cells in the host body will be fully strengthened by the T-virus. Use strong self-resistance ability to achieve the purpose of self-defense against invading viruses in the body. And among them, because it has completed fusion and symbiosis with the host cells after entering the host's body, the T-virus will actively engulf the foreign invading viruses and then strengthen the host's own cells. That's why I say that this drug can truly treat most diseases in the world. Because basically any disease is due to the host's own body's insufficient resistance, and the T-virus perfectly strengthens this point. It is devouring and strengthening. It is like a furnace, and foreign invading viruses are the nutrients of the furnace. With the increase in nutrients, the host will receive more benefits. Of course, if there is no virus invasion, the T-virus will completely quiet down and enter the incubation period to wait quietly. This can also effectively avoid the trouble caused to the person involved due to too strong immunity. Immediately, Killian took the initiative to introduce the role of the T-virus to several people. And sure enough, with Killian's explanation, everyone's big mouths were even stretched enough to put down a pebble. There is such a medicine. This is too unimaginable. For a moment, everyone couldn't help but murmur. After all, a drug that can achieve both offense and defense is simply a fantasy. It's like you find a girlfriend, and then you find out that she is not only the richest man in the world, but also loves you very much, has plenty of time to spend with you, and also has the superpower of free transformation. She will change her tricks every day to satisfy you. This is no longer paradise, this is pure fantasy, and now, the T-virus introduced by Killian is like this. Wait, you said this is a virus. After a while, someone finally reacted and said in shock. After hearing the man's words, several other CEOs also looked at Killian. Of course, viral therapy appeared as early as 1919, but it was later forgotten by the public due to the elimination of the medical market. But that doesn't mean it's useless. On the contrary, viral therapies can display shocking capabilities after being properly developed. As I said before, The role of the T-virus is to strengthen human immunity at the genetic level, engulf invading cells, increase the host's own immune mechanism, and then kill foreign viruses together. Krynn nodded and continued. But where did your virus come from? After thinking about all this, the man couldn't help but ask with a glum look on his face. You must know that if it is true as Krynn said, then this drug will not cure most diseases, but almost all. It is precisely for this reason that this makes the man lose his temper. Sorry, the source of the material is the company's core secret. No one knows where it comes from but me. Krynn understood the man's eagerness very well, so he refused with a smile. After hearing Kylian's answer, several people said nothing. After all, if this thing is as effective as Krynn said, let alone Krynn, they will do the same thing, and even apply for 24-hour military protection when traveling. But before seeing the specific results, they still have a question mark about this. After all, viruses, phagocytes, and feeding back to the host to improve human immunity are all like fairy tales. It's just that for the worries and doubts in everyone's hearts, Krynn can't be like a close sister who can help them resolve their worries and doubts. All I can say is that everything depends on time. Later, while waiting, Krynn had some snacks brought over, and new top-of-the-line Pioneer technology smartphones were given to several people, so that they would not be too overwhelmed after the long wait. Boring. I have to say that although some of these people are already over 50 years old, they learn very quickly. It didn't take long for them to learn to surf the internet like young people and even watched the above selfie videos uploaded by netizens from all over the world with great interest. There are many videos of hot and beauties showing off their figures in order to gain attention. In addition, everything on the internet has just begun. The relevant laws are still in their infancy, and the management is not so strict. Therefore, several middle-aged people can't help but have the idea of traveling to various parts of the world to experience local customs. In a short time, Kylian's new medicine did not conquer them all, but this little smartphone conquered them all. Mr. Krynn, maybe if you don't mind, we can also use that money to invest in your mobile phone company. This is also a good option. Yes, after one person brought it up, several other presidents couldn't help but nodded in agreement. After all, they really didn't expect that a small mobile phone could do so many things, not to mention taking pictures and recording videos. The pictures taken were just like the real person in front of them. Just the built-in chat software was so interesting, it's really surprising. Not to mention all kinds of high-tech propaganda. Haha, you should continue reading first. If you still think so after reading it, I don't care. In response to the suggestions of several people, Krynn just smiled slightly, and then signaled to them that the man not far away started to make some movement. After Krynn reminded them, several CEOs stopped playing with their phones and stood up one after another. Then they looked attentively at the man lying on the medical bed. At this moment, after a sudden twitch, the man immediately felt that his whole body began to tremble violently, as if there were insects squirming in his entire body, and there seemed to be a burning sensation from the inside out. What's his condition now? Why is it like this? After seeing this change in the man, one of the CEOs couldn't help but ask. This is a normal body reaction. Do you know about chemotherapy? The principle is the same. The reason why his current reaction is so violent is mainly because after his cells fused with the T virus, they began to push all cells in the body to phagocytose the virus. Because his disease is in an advanced stage, the early stage devouring of the virus may be more intense. This is just like the battlefield. When the enemy has occupied most of the area, if you want to win at this time, you can only fight back in an all-out way. Don't worry, there will be no problem. After the cells have completely engulfed the viruses in his body, they will start the body's self-cleaning function and expel all these residues from the body. Once this is done, it is complete. After hearing the man's words, Krynn opened his mouth to explain. After hearing Kylian's explanation, all the CEOs present suddenly realized. After all, they may not know the principle of the T virus, but if they use a powerful version of chemotherapy, it can be explained. It can even be said that if there is no such strong reaction, if the men get better later, they will feel that they may have been cheated. Just like that, everyone present was watching attentively. And as time passed slowly, after a long 10 minutes passed, as the man suddenly opened his mouth, the nurse on the side also very skillfully brought the basin that had been prepared. Immediately afterwards, the man spit out several mouthfuls of black blood, and at the same time, waves of stench spread all over his body. If you look carefully, you will find that the skin metabolism of men has accelerated dozens or hundreds of times in this process. Nowadays, men look like they have not showered for several years. However, as more and more black sludge appeared on his body, the man's body gradually began to return to normal. The whole process only took about 10 minutes. After returning to normal, the man felt that his body had unprecedented clarity. Even his eyes are a lot brighter. At this moment, after a long time to react, the man rubbed his belly where the pain gradually disappeared, and then looked around blankly. "How are you feeling now?" After seeing that the man was fine, Samuel immediately came forward and asked. As for the other nurses, in addition to helping Samuel, there were also several who methodically recorded the man's vital signs and related data. There was even a nurse who accompanied the man without waiting for him to react, saying, "Ah." The preliminary blood sampling was completed with a sound. "It's so strange, I suddenly feel very relaxed and no pain anymore. I seem to be cured." After hearing Samuel's words, the man who felt the condition of his body at this moment spoke with excitement before the other party even made a judgment. After all, he has been sick for more than 10 years. This long time has already made him accustomed to paying attention to even the slightest changes in his body. But now, this kind of feedback is particularly obvious, as if the boulder weighing as much as 1,000 kilograms on the body has disappeared out of thin air. What? After hearing what the man said, the CEOs in the observation room spoke in shock. After all, the other person was in excruciating pain just a second ago, but now he's fine. Painkillers don't even work that well. Really, I feel okay, and the organs in my body don't hurt anymore. At this time, as if to prove his judgment, the man suddenly stood up, trotting on the spot, and jumping excitedly and said. At this moment, he once again had an intact body, and he was extremely happy. After that, Samuel began to arrange for people to conduct relevant tests on him. "Doctor, the test results are out. There are no lesions in his body. As long as he rests for a period of time, he will even be better than normal people." Immediately, after a long time passed, the little nurse in charge of the laboratory reported to Samuel with excitement. And these words shocked everyone present. At this moment, everyone didn't know what to say. Fraud. Just for a moment, this would be too much to treat them as idiots. Real. Today's technology is so powerful that it can even defeat cancer. And time. This effect is too good, isn't it? Suddenly, as if he thought of something, a CEO in the observation room quickly raised his hand and looked at the $1 million mechanical watch on his wrist. Less than an hour had passed since the experiment started. Time. Where is the agreed course of treatment? What about cycles? For a moment, his entire body showed an incredible look and he spoke. "Sir Killian, can we personally check the next inspection?" At this time, Laszlo on the side also did the same, and then took the initiative to speak to Killian. "You must know that if the effect of the previous small blue medicine bottle is really so good, then they will really make a lot of money, let alone 200 billion and 10%, it is worth 2 trillion. "Certainly." After hearing what Laszlo said, Killian made a friendly gesture of invitation after answering. Then several people followed the nurse into the ward under the leadership of Laszlo. Later, after entering, several knowledgeable CEOs took the initiative to get close to the operators in the laboratory department and took a look, and some even took the initiative to operate. It was just that they were too excited, which also aroused the resentment of many medical staff. However, they also knew that each of these people had customers who were the bosses, so they did not say anything but waited quietly aside. Later, several CEOs passed all the tests including CT tests, X-rays, blood tests, cancer cell tests, B ultrasounds, MRIs, etc., as long as they could reflect cancer-related data. The tumor markers in the patient's body have also disappeared. Even the carcinoembryonic antigen index in the blood has decreased and has become negative. This is too incredible. It's just a miracle from God. However, after the examination, they were shocked to find that the man's body was unexpectedly normal. The only places where cancer cells could be detected were the man's feces and dirt on his body. Wow! For a moment, after seeing this result, everyone present exploded. I can't be dreaming now. Even one of the presidents was still stunned and said that he couldn't imagine it. After all, you have to know that he was a patient with terminal cancer, and he was cured in just 1 hour. After decades of development, they have only been able to develop targeted drugs that can control the disease and prevent it from getting worse. The true gospel for mankind has arrived at this moment. Laszlo, who knew the most about medicine among everyone, looked at the test report in front of him and murmured with an indescribable expression on his face. At this moment, he could even imagine the cheers of all cancer patients around the world and the wails of companies that had invested hundreds of billions of dollars in cancer research. You must know that the market for cancer drugs is extremely huge, because as we all know, except for early-stage cancers, most cancers can only be controlled but cannot be cured, and drugs are life-saving drugs for every patient. No matter how expensive it is, they will buy it as long as it is useful. Therefore, many companies have invested large sums of money into this industry. As a result, now, everything has been strangled in the cradle by Kylian's pioneering technology before it even started. At this moment, even Laszlo felt that it was not impossible for those people to form a group and put a high price on Kylian's head in the underground world. After all, the effect of this medicine is no less than that of someone who claimed that water can be used as oil. Mr. Krynn, are you sure we can start cooperating? At this time, after Laszlo came to his senses, he asked Krynn, who appeared behind him. Now he is no longer as confident as he was at the beginning. After all, the finished products of other people's medicines have shown effects. Let alone eating alone, even if he wants to share it with others, he can easily find the heads of state and other officials of various countries or thousands of people. Cooperation with large companies worth billions. And even if Krynn only needs to release the news, countless people will come to him begging Grandpa to sue Grandma. Of course, I said that for pioneer technology, it only seeks to benefit society and the people. The market is huge, and I can't eat it all by myself. So, I have to ask everyone here to work with us to push this drug into the hands of people around the world. Looking at Laszlo's attitude, Krynn was extremely satisfied, and then said with a smile. The reason why they were asked to come over to see them was not to attack them, but to let them know how much advantage they had taken. At this time, if they could clearly understand their status and position themselves properly, then if you seek cooperation from him, Krynn will naturally welcome you warmly. And if you can't recognize yourself clearly, still feel that both parties are on equal footing, and even feel that if you have invested tens or hundreds of billions, and cooperate with this attitude, then Krynn can only say sorry. But at a glance, there are basically no idiots in the latter. This is what makes Krynn most satisfied. At least he doesn't have to find anyone else. The reason why Krynn is willing to cooperate with them is that the market is really too big. It is impossible for him to just open a sales line for one line of business and let his company monopolize everything from production to sales. If this continues, the consequences will not be that every country will welcome him, but will be afraid of him. After all, as pioneer technology grows stronger, they are present in the communications industry, medical industry, mobile phone industry, etc., and if such a behemoth holds everything in its own hands, how can it make those big countries feel at ease? In other words, if you eat meat and don't let others drink soup, naturally many people will want to kill you. As for sales, Krynn doesn't mind others drinking some soup from his bowl. Chapter 71. Krynn. At this time, those who had said this and that before, although their attitudes were not very bad, but there were also people who had the mentality of investing in you and making money, were all shocked when they looked at the tall man in front of them, with a mature and handsome face. The man whispered, their status changed suddenly, and they didn't know what they felt in their hearts. But at this time, Krynn didn't care about their psychological activities, as long as there were no 2 or 5 boys. Okay, we've almost finished reading here. Please come to the conference room with me to discuss it in detail. After seeing that everyone had nothing to say, Krynn took the initiative to speak. Immediately after Krynn took the initiative to go out, everyone followed him. And they also deliberately stayed behind Krynn, discussing something with each other. After a while, in the reconvening room, Laszlo, as the initiator, squeezed his hand in embarrassment and looked at Krynn, who was sitting in the main seat. After a while, he didn't know what to say. After all, at this moment, even as a pharmaceutical giant, he felt panicked in front of this kind of medicine that could change human history. But the awkward atmosphere at the scene was broken when Krynn spoke next. First of all, each of the companies here can get 10% of the shares of Pioneer Pharmaceuticals and the right to sell T-virus drugs. As for the ownership and shares of each region in the world, it is up to you to divide it yourself. After the agreement is finalized, it will be reported to the head office and they will give feedback to me. Secondly, the sales rights have been given to you. Correspondingly, except for matters related to the potion itself, we will not have too much involvement in other processing, and you will solve it yourself. But it cannot harm the company's image. Violators will be kicked out and their right to sell pharmaceuticals will be revoked. Second, I need you to promise that your company, at any time, must maintain a high degree of unity of opinion with the head office, Pioneer Technology, unite as one, be united to the outside world, and reject internal struggles. Correspondingly, you will all become allies and receive full support from Pioneer Technology. Quote. After seeing that everyone here was speechless, Krynn also spoke. And just like that, after Krynn talked about several key terms, and without objection from several people, the cooperation between the two parties officially began. At this moment, Krynn has officially taken over the pharmaceutical industry. With the 6 giants in the pharmaceutical industry laying the foundation, plus T-virus drugs, the entire pharmaceutical industry will be truly under his control in a short time. Next, he can breathe for a while. Later, after finalizing the general direction, Krynn left the meeting room, and the subsequent company leader was responsible for the remaining issues between the two parties. At this time, Krynn has other things to do, and that is, catching mice. What's going on now? After returning to the office, Krynn opened the communication connection on the research island. After seeing the deputy's face on the other side, Krynn also asked, "Boss, everything is under our control. After you and Dr. Samuel left, the defense force on the island was suddenly transferred, and there was a slight oversight, which led to the sneaking in of a person suspected of being an official intelligence officer of a major power. Now she is sneaking to the second underground floor through the ventilation duct. Boss, don't worry, I have sent security forces to arrest you." After seeing the boss answer the video call, the deputy on the other side of the phone spoke hurriedly while sitting upright. "After all, you have to know that now that the boss and the top leader are gone, such a highly confidential base of the company has been infiltrated by the enemy. No matter what, it is also his second-in-command's responsibility. Even if someone is not good, it is not certain that he will be fired directly." The man couldn't help but panic when he thought of this. "Wait, don't worry, if I remember correctly, the content currently being developed on the second underground floor is Cerberus and liquors, right?" Just as the man thought, when he first learned that his secret base had been infiltrated, Krynn wanted to remove this guy from his post, but after listening to the other party's report, he suddenly thought of something. Lien said. This project was when the experimental island was first purchased, because it had not yet begun to expand underground, and at that time the T-virus project had already been launched. So we started related experiments on the second underground floor. Later, due to the expansion of more and more layers, the more important experiments such as Tyrant were successively moved to the deepest underground. Cerberus and Liquor were not of much value, one was really ugly in appearance, and the other had low combat effectiveness, so Krynn did not let them move, but stayed in place for the researchers to study on their own. See if you can reuse the waste and give them a little surprise or something. After that, Krynn stopped asking about the project because he was too busy. And now, after being reminded by the man, he suddenly thought of it, and then an interesting idea couldn't help but be born in his mind. "Yes, boss." After hearing the boss's question, the man immediately answered. "Close the ventilation ducts leading to other places and give our little mice direct access to the second underground floor. I remember that Cerberus has no actual combat data, right? Since he can sneak in, he must be very skilled. Let him try. In addition, block the door and let Black Watch do the cleaning work at any time." Immediately, Krynn ordered the deputy in front of him with a sneer. "You must know that the United States can directly deal with some high-secret companies that cooperate closely with the government after catching spies. Unless you cooperate, you deserve to be beaten to death. Not to mention a large company like Pioneer Technology. Even if Pioneer Technology does not pursue the case, the retaliation from the military and the government will be a heavy blow to the parties involved and the forces behind it. You must know that Krynn has spent so many shares to go out, and that is not just to let them do nothing. When they become a community of interests, as long as you have even the slightest loss of interests, there is no need to wait for you to speak. Your friends will take the initiative to solve these potential troubles for you. Subsequently, following Kylian's instructions, the deputy on the side also immediately gave instructions. At this time, as the person involved who had already sneaked into this underground base. With every step she took, she suddenly realized that something was wrong. The first is signal shielding. Needless to say, although many companies will not do this, it is understandable that some highly confidential corporate R&D bases will do this. But after infiltrating here, the people she met, she even had a feeling that those people were even stronger than the people she came out of, and the organization spent a lot of effort to cultivate them. It's just that their specializations are different. Moreover, after entering the ventilation duct, she was originally heading straight towards the ground, but she subconsciously found that every step she took was pre-planned, as if an invisible big hand was guiding her, urging her forward. However, after walking for a while, she suddenly noticed a different light in front of her. After looking at the pipe behind her that she had been coming down, and then at the light not far away, Natasha gritted her teeth, went on. After arriving at the ventilation duct well, through the blinds, Natasha discovered that this was a place similar to a biological health resort. Because there are countless cultivation cabins below that she has never seen before, and they are braving the low temperature and cold. The reason why she can see it is because there are huge pipes connecting them next to each cultivation cabin. Inside. And there is an electronic panel next to the breeding cabin, which seems to be recording something. Unfortunately, it was too far away for Natasha to see clearly. The whole room seemed extremely quiet at this moment. It was as if the entire floor of researchers were on vacation, with no one left. Although Natasha knew in advance that all senior leaders of Pioneer Technology Company would evacuate due to the impromptu meeting, but it stands to reason that the grassroots researchers should stick to their posts. Immediately, her eyes kept spinning, and after thinking for a long time, Natasha finally chose to take out the tool she carried with her, and then quietly opened the blinds with its help. Call out, single quote. Soon after, with a slight landing sound, Natasha landed as smoothly as a cat. The whole process was done quietly and effortlessly. After landing, Natasha observed her surroundings and made sure there was no danger. Then she started to turn on the recorder she wore on her chest, and at the same time she began to get closer to the breeding cabin to see through the gap inside. Unfortunately, perhaps because it was too dark inside, Natasha could see nothing but the mucus-like skin inside that was beating constantly. After taking pictures of the entire laboratory, Natasha saw a researcher's badge on the table at the door when she was about to leave the room. It was as if it had been thrown here casually, and Natasha picked it up subconsciously. After all, an underground base of this level would need to swipe an identity card to pass. Then she walked to the next room, although she didn't know what was in it. But her intuition told her that she wouldn't be disappointed. Before and after she approached the glass door, as expected, the electronic system above showed that identification was required, and Natasha decisively pressed the work badge in her hand. Then with a beeping sound, the door was unlocked. And Natasha carefully opened the door and walked in. Although everything was going well so far, she always felt like there was a haze hanging over her heart. Then, just after his front feet entered the door he came in from was also closed and locked. At this moment, Natasha's heart sank to the bottom. As expected, after she came in, all this should be done intentionally by the people from Pioneer Technology, just to guide her here. After trying to open the door that I came in before, it couldn't be opened. Natasha casually picked up a signature pad on the table next to her, and then walked inside with a wary look. By now, she was certain that there was definitely something else waiting for her ahead. As he continued to step inside, he saw cages similar to those in a pet shop. The only difference was that all the animals in these cages had no fur. Many of the unknown dogs even have holes in their flesh. At this moment, even Natasha, who was used to the darkness of this world, couldn't help but feel a tremble in her heart. Even Natasha could clearly see that the dogs looked at her with bloodthirsty eyes like wild beasts. At this moment she had no doubt that if it were not for the shackles of the cage, these dogs would immediately rush towards her and tear her apart. But before it could react, the door of a cage opened with a ding and a pop. Then, after the hellhound inside was freed from restraints, he rushed out and ran towards the opponent without any care. After cursing secretly, Natasha used her strength to jump directly to a high platform more than 2 meters high, trying to avoid the sharp edge. But the next moment she realized that she was still naive. After she jumped up, the Cerberus, powered by its extremely amazing jumping power, charged straight at Natasha. At this moment, he pulled up his collar to cover his mouth and nose. She didn't want this unknown thing to inadvertently have its flesh and blood on her body. Then Natasha also swung the signature pad in her hand hard, and then flew towards it. It's just that for the Cerberus, these were ignored. After forcefully catching Natasha's flying board with his head, the Cerberus still flew towards her unabated. But for Natasha, who had already expected it, the flying board just now was just a temporary attack. She casually held her wrist, and an extremely thin, high-strength thread appeared in her hand. Then he turned sideways, and then pulled it in the air. After tying the hell dog's head with a thin line, he also pulled hard. In an instant, under the extremely sharp pull of the thin wire, the Cerberus' corpse was directly separated. Then it fell towards the ground. At this moment, Natasha breathed a sigh of relief and looked down. Even though her head was gone, her body was still trying to move. His mind couldn't help but be shocked. She really couldn't believe that there was a company that could develop such a thing. But she was not given too much time to think about it. With several beep and beep unlocking sounds, at this moment, more than 10 cages in this laboratory were all opened in unison. At this moment, more than a dozen hellhounds rushed out of the door and attacked Natasha. The originally small room instantly became extremely lively. I think I still miss those cute terrorists. Looking at the dangerous situation in front of her, Natasha tilted her head helplessly and complained. Then the thin thread in his hands tightened, and he started fighting directly. Roar! At this moment, after the first hell dog roared towards Natasha. Then he turned his hands, and a line flashed on the table, high platform and research equipment as Natasha kept turning. Originally, the smaller hellhounds were supposed to have the upper hand, but Natasha was able to get rid of them several times with her advantage of improving her body shape. There were even many hellhounds, squeezed together because of the small space. But this time, after dodging several times, Natasha returned to the ground, then squatted down and looked at the hellhounds rushing toward her not far away. At this moment, in front of them was several metal wires that Natasha had woven together. However, for these hellhounds who had fallen into a state of rage, the obstacles in front of them naturally could not stop them, and each one of them flew towards Natasha with all their strength. But this time, due to the huge acceleration, the flesh and blood were separated immediately after the first dog hit. In addition, a steady stream of hellhounds began to rush up from behind. For a while, the scene was like a meat grinder, constantly pieces of meat flew out through the gaps in the metal wire mesh. However, as more and more hellhounds rushed forward, the huge flesh and blood wall began to gradually crush the temporary metal net and began to shake. The table legs, or instruments and equipment that were tied with metal wires, began to sway precariously due to the increasing force. After seeing this scene, Natasha's already relaxed heart could not help but feel suspended again. Then she looked around. At this critical moment of crisis, she had to find some tools while the barbed wire fence could still hold on. Later, when looking at the corridor outside, Natasha was surprised to discover the existence of the fire axe. Then the whole person kicked off his toes and rushed straight towards there. Bang! Single quote. With a direct elbow blow, the fire glass broke immediately, and a fire axe with a cold light was lying quietly inside. But there was no time to appreciate it. At this moment, Natasha could already hear the sound of the group of hellhounds breaking out of the door behind her. After taking it out with her hand, Natasha used her peripheral vision to catch sight of a Cerberus that had already rushed over. Then she swept her back and the Cerberus was chopped straight from head to tail by Natasha. Became two halves. A large amount of dead blood continued to fall along with the internal organs in an instant. Even Natasha's original sneak suit was mostly stained red from the battle. At this moment, Natasha could only pray that these guys would not have any infectious diseases, otherwise she could already predict what kind of disinfection they would encounter after returning. But before she could continue thinking, the two remaining hellhounds rushed toward her. This time, Natasha waved the fire axe in her hand and made a sweeping sweep. The two hellhounds that rushed towards her were separated from the top and bottom, and then turned into a pile of rotten meat and hit the wall. Whew. After seeing that there were no other hellhounds at the scene, Natasha began to adjust her breathing quickly. You must know that although the time just now was short, she mobilized all the muscles of her body to go all out every minute and every second. Did it. For this reason, she now felt that her body was almost exhausted. But it wasn't until she was completely relieved. Then I saw the corpse that had been cut in half vertically began to slowly squirm, as if it was about to be resurrected. But before it could continue to squirm, Natasha directly picked up the fire axe and struck it. This time, it directly chopped the squirming dead meat into several pieces, which were even impossible to put together. And because of this, those dead meats also became completely silent. I will never do another mission with this company again. If this continues, who knows what kind of monsters will be developed. Vampire, you owe me a psychotherapy fee. While complaining, Natasha began to look for other ways out. After all, the way back had been blocked, and now she could only continue walking down. Although she didn't know what would be waiting for her in the future, it couldn't be more disgusting than these dead dogs, right? On the other side, after seeing everything about Natasha through the on-site surveillance, Krynn couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. What he didn't expect was that he would be noticed by S.H.I.E.L.D. so early, and that his top agent, Natasha, would be sent over. For a moment, Krynn was a little unsure about how to deal with the other party. Although he now thinks he is not afraid of S.H.I.E.L.D., you must know that this department is a big cannon. As long as they think it is right, they will do anything, and they are only responsible to the Security Council, that is, the 5 major countries. No single country has the power to make them do what they do. Their agents are almost all over the world. It can be said that there is nothing you can't think of that they can't touch. And now if Natasha is dealt with here like this, it is true that the secrets in the base will not be exposed. But it will also completely attract the attention of S.H.I.E.L.D. All in all, he will no longer be able to develop as peacefully as he is now. For a moment, Krynn could say his head was about to explode. At this moment, he finally understood why during the Three Kingdoms period, both Sun Quan and Liu Bei wanted to let Cao Cao go and let the other party kill him. This thing is completely a hot potato. Besides unlocking a title, killing him has no other substantial benefits at all. But don't kill me, it feels disgusting. Now Krynn can be said to feel the same for Liu Bei. But as Krynn thought, Natasha on the other side came to a pure white room under the arrangement of the deputy of the base. And here, there are all kinds of training equipment. Just by looking at it, Natasha knew that this place was definitely for some kind of creature to test actual combat data. Drop, 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 single quote. At this moment, a huge alarm bell rang in the room. In the middle of the room, a pure black nutrition cabin containing the pure black nutrition cabin she saw at the beginning also rose up. But, at this moment, Natasha became fully alert. She didn't think that after the other party spent so many tricks to lure her here, the solution would be simple. Roar. Immediately, I saw that the nutrition cabin not far away began to stop the infusion of liquid, and gradually the unknown creatures in the cabin began to shake violently. Finally, it began to let out bursts of extremely intimidating roars. At this moment, Natasha felt like her whole body was numb. She really didn't expect that this company would be so advanced in the development of biological weapons, with all kinds of monsters emerging one after another, each one more terrifying than the last. Moreover, Natasha also noticed that nutritional cabins began to rise one after another in other locations in the room. This was obviously to deal with her, and another group of monsters was about to appear. Forget it, stop continuing to launch, and let this liquor test the actual combat data. After thinking for a while, Krynn spoke to the deputy on the other end of the video. When the deputy heard Kyllian's words, he was stunned for a moment, and then respectfully pressed the stop button. At this moment, the man's button came down. The nutrition cabins that had risen halfway in the actual combat test room immediately stopped rising and began to slowly fall. After a while, as the floor was closed again, it returned to its original appearance. It's just that Natasha doesn't have much time to care about these now. Because in front of her, there was already a giant skinless orangutan with its brain exposed, using its extremely long tongue to look at her aggressively. However, what surprised Natasha was that she had been preparing on the spot for a long time, but the other party did not rush forward. This time, Natasha was particularly surprised. However, she would not think that the other party was showing off his gentlemanly behavior and letting her go first. Then, as Natasha moved slowly a little bit, surprisingly, even though she had walked a few meters away, the licker was still just on the spot, waving its tongue like a snake. At this moment, Natasha finally understood that the monster in front of her was probably blind. In order to confirm her thoughts, Natasha's hands began to shake gently. After seeing that the other party did not feel anything due to his movements, Natasha's heart did not relax. Because she knows deeply that when a creature loses one ability, God will often add another terrifying ability. And the current opponent may have extremely terrifying power in some places that I haven't noticed yet. Then she slowed down her pace and tried to find the exit little by little, but in vain. Natasha finally had no choice but to focus on the monster that was crawling not far away, trying to find food. She knew that if she wanted to get out, this monster would have to be dealt with. After that, Natasha held the fire axe tightly in her hand and began to cautiously approach the monster not far away. Bang! Single quote. And this process, until Natasha got around the monster's back, she saw it flying towards the licker, and the fire axe in her hand struck straight towards the licker's exposed brain, although she didn't know the monster. Where is the weakness? But she doesn't believe that any creature with a brain can survive if it is chopped by it. However, after hearing the noise coming from behind, the licker turned around at an extremely fast speed, and then the tongue full of foul-smelling mucus also immediately attacked Natasha and pushed her straight out. Immediately before she could react, the licker slapped Natasha with its extremely sharp claws. At this critical moment, Natasha also used the fire axe in her hand to bounce off the wall in midair, and then used the reverse force to narrowly avoid the licker's claws. But before Natasha could take a breath, after finally feeling the movement of the prey, the licker immediately changed direction and continued to fly towards Natasha. After approaching at a very fast speed, he came up and grabbed Natasha with his huge claws. At this time, Natasha was holding a fire axe in front of her, feeling the constant friction between the monster's claws and the pure steel fire axe in her hand, and even sparks appeared. At this time, Natasha happened to see medical alcohol on the side, and after dodging, she smashed the glass bottle containing medical alcohol directly towards the licker not far away. Go! Snapped. Single quote. As the wine hit the licker, the pieces of the wine bottle instantly scattered in all directions, and all the wine in it spilled on the licker. Roar! At this moment, he didn't know whether he was injured by the debris or felt pain due to alcohol. The licker only felt that his anger had reached the limit, and then he began to roar loudly. At this time, Natasha did not give the other party a chance to continue shouting. Instead, she held an axe in both hands and struck straight at the licker's head. The licker's survival instinct also subconsciously hurriedly placed his giant claws in front of him. Snapped. Then there was a sound of flesh and bone splitting, and Natasha's blow struck directly at the junction of the opponent's claws, cutting off the licker's extremely threatening claws. Then it was replaced by the miserable wail of the licker. The whole person immediately began to twist desperately. When Natasha saw this situation, she also pulled away suddenly, and after leaping to an experimental table, she hurriedly dodged a few times and distanced herself. All that is left is the incompetent rage of the licker on the spot. Although it has lost one sharp claw, the only remaining sharp claw is still being waved by it. What was once a good training ground suddenly became dilapidated under the sharp claws of the licker. Even when the licker suddenly slapped a sharp claw against a metal wall, the sharp claws and steel kept making a squeaking sound of wear, and sparks suddenly appeared, and the one jumping towards the outside Mars also accidentally landed on the licker. Boom! Single quote. In an instant, the licker's body, which was already full of alcohol, burst into flames under the touch of sparks. At this moment, the licker's entire body was engulfed in flames. But for it, it's not over yet. As if to carry the last person on his back, the licker spit out his several-meter-long tongue and swung it wildly in this small space, just to force the prey to move even one step. Seeing the monster moving like this, Natasha was also nervous. After not being hit several times, the monster's tongue suddenly swung towards her, and seeing this, Natasha could only jump, stand up. But also because of this, after feeling the shock, the licker continued to wave his tongue, trying to bind the other person and feel the pain of the flames with him. Under the licker's crazy offensive, Natasha, who was still in the air, only felt her waist tighten, and then she felt that her entire waist was entangled with the other party's tongue. At this time, the licker immediately pulled hard, trying to pull the other person over. After feeling the powerful force in her waist, Natasha became furious at this time. After struggling hard to pick up the fire axe that fell not far away, she then grabbed the monster's sticky tongue with her left hand, and then pulled it off suddenly. His right hand waved down hard without hesitation. In an instant, with a huge sound of breaking through the air, the monster's tongue broke into 2 pieces. At this time, after the tongue was broken, the monster seemed to have accepted its fate, and fell straight down without any struggle. Let the flames engulf his body. After seeing the monster finally die, Natasha, who was trying to survive many dangers at this moment, was completely exhausted, and then she collapsed on the ground regardless of her appearance, still breathing heavily. Gas. At this time, the training room was no longer as clean as it was at the beginning, with blood and pieces of flesh flying everywhere on the floor. Even from a long distance away, Natasha could smell the disgusting smell of death on the monster. At this moment, a few sudden smiles slowly appeared in the room that had already quieted down. In an instant, streams of gas began to disperse into the house through the small opening. After a while, the entire room was filled with translucent smoke. Natasha, who was still lying on the ground recovering her strength, completely fainted at this moment. Then, as the door opened, a group of Black Watch soldiers wearing chemical protective suits walked in with full vigilance. After confirming that Natasha had no room for resistance, he took out the handcuffs from behind, held Natasha's hands and tried to cuff them. But the situation suddenly changed in an instant. I saw Natasha, who had fainted on the ground before, suddenly opened her eyes, and then in the eyes of a group of Black Watch soldiers, she grabbed the opponent's extended hand with her backhand, and then with a choke, the whole like a snake, the man circled around several times in an instant, and then used his strength to throw away the Black Watch soldier who started first. But this time, she was destined to be disappointed. I saw him exerting force across his waist and swung hard, trying to throw him out. Then he used the rebound force to kill several other people and Natasha grabbed their gas masks. However, he found that the soldier clamped under his crotch was like an iron block, firmly fixing him in place, with no tendency to move at all. Even when Natasha looked down, it was as if she could see the face under the mask, smiling contemptuously at her overestimation. Then, Natasha felt that the world in front of her began to spin. I saw the Black Watch soldier who was clamped by Natasha before, using his strong right hand to hold Natasha's calf, and then shook it up hard. Then after spinning in place for a few times, he threw it straight towards his teammates. At this time, the 2 teammates seemed to have expected it and were waiting at the spot early. Each of them clamped half of his body at the same time. Before Natasha could start to fight back, she only felt a strong attack on her neck, and she fainted completely and unconsciously. Take away. As a cold voice fell, Natasha was immediately handcuffed by a Black Watch soldier, who handcuffed her hands behind her back, then twisted them up and walked out. Boss, what should we do with this spy next? At this time, the deputy who saw all this through the surveillance camera looked at Krynn with a flattering look and asked. Brainwash her first and make sure all these memories in the underground research room are erased. Disinfect her again and let professionals check if there are any wounds. Be careful not to be infected by the T-virus. Wait for my orders later. After hearing the deputy's words, Krynn finished speaking coldly and hung up the video. Next he needs to find allies who will speak for him. Then he picked up the phone on the table, selected a person's name, and dialed it immediately. Ha ha ha, Mr. Krynn, I was about to call you. Thanks to you, our military has decided to increase cooperation with you in the past 2 days and is planning to order more tyrants. This thing is here. The frontal battlefield is simply a battlefield deterrent. With that power, Even if we prepare in advance, without the artillery fire coverage of several regiments, I can't imagine how we could lose." Before Killian could take the initiative to speak, a rough voice came over from the other end of the phone, but his tone revealed great happiness. "Ross has recently made his full appearance in the military. Under the leadership of his army, he cooperated with the tyrant in frontal combat against the terrorists armed with RPGs and light machine guns. It can be said to be a one-sided massacre. He has been on nearly dozens of missions, and each time, with the help of Pioneer Technologies' research team, Tyrant has completed his mission extremely well. Apart from being difficult to catch alive, there are simply no shortcomings. Even the Tyrant's combat information has been read by the first and second leaders of the military, and both of them highly praised it. After all, you must know that, as Ross said, the current Tyrant is only a product in the laboratory stage and has not yet been developed to maturity. If they all turn into soldiers who retain their consciousness, then their army will be completely invincible." He immediately expressed his affirmation of General Ross's long-term strategic vision, and even after research, it was decided that the military would increase investment in the research and development of biological weapons in the next few decades. Ross is the main person in charge of this department. As long as he wants, the military can quickly connect with Pioneer Technology and increase investment in the Tyrant project. Or they might restart the Super Soldier project themselves. In short, with the outstanding performance of the Tyrant, everyone has fantasies about super soldiers. General Ross, as much as I'd like to echo your sentiments and say something cheerful. But, hey, I have to tell you something tricky. After hearing Rose's happy words on the other end of the phone, Killian spoke in a pretentious manner. What's wrong? Don't you, Mr. Killian, forcefully capture the experimenter for the Tyrant experiment?" Rose, who was originally happy, said in confusion after hearing Killian's sad words. After all, it can be said that Killian is now in a period of prosperity and success. He is backed by the two major confidential institutions of the military and the government. Unless he does something illegal without opening his eyes, who would dare to risk the anger of the US government and the government? The military's anger went to Killian. "How is it possible, General Ross? Others don't know, but you don't know. Our Pioneer Technology is a law-abiding company from the beginning to the end." Regarding Rose's words, Killian immediately shouted injustice. Ha, it seems that is indeed the case, otherwise you wouldn't be going through such a thankless process to amend the bill. What's going on? If you need help, just say so. You are now our military's designated partner. Anyone who dares to touch you is provoking our entire US military. After hearing Killian's words, Rose reacted immediately, and then said firmly after laughing. "You must know that Killian is now their weapons supplier. If this supplier collapses, where will they find such practical and powerful weapons? So Killian must be the Iron Protector. As long as it's not about assassinating the President of the United States, then these are minor problems. Today I discovered a spy who had infiltrated into my research base. Then under our interrogation, I found that her background seemed a bit big. What is it called? The Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency. But I checked and there is no such department, so I thought of asking you, General, if this is not a secret agent department organized by other countries." After Rose spoke frankly, Killian immediately pretended to be confused and said, "After all, the existence of SHIELD is basically unknown to outsiders except for a few super brains in the military and government. Today's SHIELD can be said to be particularly secretive. And Killian is just a startup company. If he knows this department, then Rose is not helping him deal with the problem, but thinking about how to deal with him. Of course, it may be impossible to deal with Killian, but it is impossible for these Killians to gamble on the kindness of others. Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Agency. Someone from SHIELD. There was no shooting conflict between the two of you, right?" On the other end of the phone, General Ross, who was still full of confidence, suddenly turned gloomy after hearing Killian's words, and then asked again. "After all, if we were to select the most hated department, then apart from the military's picket department, Ross's #1 dislike would be SHIELD, and to some extent, it would even be far more than the picket department. Because both are military agencies funded by the US government, the only difference is that they are under the jurisdiction of the government, while SHIELD is under the jurisdiction of the Security Council. It can be said that it is the sword of justice in the hands of those big shots. And if that's the case, forget it, but although the bosses are different, because they are both military organizations, the areas they are responsible for completely overlap at some point. This resulted in the U.S. military encountering SHIELD performing the same mission on several occasions. The two were at each other's throats, and friction even broke out. In the end, the government intervened and asked the military to stop all operations, and SHIELD would give them whatever they wanted. It's just one time, the key is that it happens every time after that, which makes the military generals become more and more unhappy with SHIELD. Even Ross had several conflicts with people from SHIELD because he was leading his troops on missions, and was arrogantly led away by Nick Fury with people and belongings. This also made him feel that he could not hold his head high in the military department. It is because of this that the U.S. military and SHIELD have disliked each other for a long time. In subsequent SHIELD TV series, the reason why the military was so keen on destroying SHIELD bases was for this reason. And now, after hearing that SHIELD was in trouble with his weapons supplier again, old and new hatred suddenly flooded into Rose's heart. But no matter how angry he was, he still had to determine the situation at the scene first so that he could handle it later. Living up to Rose's expectations, Killian did a very good job, even so perfect that he captured a spy sent by SHIELD alive. The news simply made Ross overjoyed. You know, those idiots in SHIELD have always belittled them by claiming to be the ace of the Special Forces aces. But this time, he wanted to see what kind of expression Nick Fury had on his ace henchman being caught. Immediately after asking Killian to protect the other party's men and relevant evidence and wait for their arrival, he immediately led a battalion of men towards the location of Killian's company. At the same time, after Ross applied eye drops to Nick Fury, Killian still called Congressman Kennedy for the same reason. As expected, with Kennedy's current level, he naturally knew about SHIELD. It's simply lawless. Who gave them the right to investigate an outstanding American company in such a wanton manner? It's like a bunch of unfamiliar dogs. I think they just don't know who is the one who gave them the bones. Killian, please secure the evidence now and wait for me to come. If SHIELD doesn't give me an explanation this time, then I won't be able to get any more of his funds in the United States. After hearing Killian's words, Congressman Kennedy on the other side spoke extremely angrily. You must know that the current Pioneer technology, but its money printing machine, with every new technology released by Pioneer Technology, the shares in his hands are simply rising hundreds of times. Even a discerning person can see that Pioneer Technology is only in its early stages of entrepreneurship, and there is still a very long-term development period ahead. Everyone wants to pay a high price to buy his shares. It's just that he didn't sell it, and whoever sells it now is a fool. And just like that, SHIELD dared to touch his cake. After hanging up, Kennedy called several of his friends who were in the same alliance one by one. After learning that the Golden Rooster they owned was being bullied, everyone was furious, as if they were the ones being bullied. At this moment, the more than 10% of the shares that Killian had previously distributed exploded with great power. In an instant, the President of the United States received a joint impeachment petition from various high-level confidential officials in the United States, including many ministers. The main content is that a certain overseas intelligence agency arbitrarily investigates legal companies in the United States without going through any formal procedures. He even secretly sent his agents to investigate, but was caught by people from Pioneer Technology Company. Not to mention that investigating legitimate companies without permission is a stain. Even if it is the latter, it is a big stain for you, an underground organization famous for its intelligence organization, to have one of your subordinates caught. Of course, Kennedy did not tell anyone about the situation of SHIELD. After all, SHIELD was kept secret from the public. Very few people even know about it among senior American officials. But does it matter? He only needs to let his allies know that there is an overseas espionage organization that wants to secretly steal Pioneer Technology's secrets, so that Pioneer Technology can cause a major blow. This is enough. At this moment, after learning about the sudden report of his subordinates, the president was still confused at first. He had no idea when overseas intelligence organizations became so crazy. They even dared to take action on American territory. Until the end, when Kennedy reported to him, he said it might be someone from SHIELD, but he wasn't sure, and he was now being investigated. In an instant, the president knew the origin of all this. Where was SHIELD investigating? It simply wanted to take out the coffers of those officials. Immediately contacted Nick Fury. Nick Fury, I need you to give me an explanation. After the call was connected, the president asked with a dark face and a serious look. Sorry, Mr. President, I don't know what specific aspects you are referring to. To be honest, Nick Fury was confused when he received the call from the president. After all, apart from reimbursing a little more money recently, he didn't seem to have anything worthy of a special call from the president. But subconsciously, Nick Fury thought of Natasha again. If it was his recent actions that needed explanation, that was probably the only one. But it's impossible. Natasha is his best ace agent. Even if she sneaks into the Soviet headquarters, she can do it with ease, let alone a small company. One of your subordinates is female, red-haired, and Soviet. Don't tell me that you have nothing to do with her. There have been so many complaints about her on the phone now that even when I call you now, the secretary's place is still ringing. After hearing that Nick Fury on the other end of the phone was still pretending to be confused, the president at this moment forced himself to hold back his anger and spoke. You must know that his next election is not long away, and he still has to rely on the support of these people. If one of them is not good now, he will step down directly in the next term. Moreover, Nick Fury's actions have indeed gone too far. Now Pioneer Technologies' revenue has not only driven Miami's GPD to start to rise crazily. Even the overall technology stock market in the United States has benefited from the collective growth of 3 feet in the wind, like one green leak after another. For the United States, all this has earned more than trillions. Not to mention that the influence of Pioneer Technology is not small now. Whether it's public or private, he must let Nick Fury give him an explanation. I'll give you an explanation, Mr. President. After hearing the words of the president on the other side, Nick Fury did not expect that Natasha, the Black Widow who was famous in the underground world, who made him think that there would be no omissions, actually had an accident. Then after being silent for a long time, Nick Fury replied to the president. You better handle it. After speaking, the president hung up the phone and dealt with the aftermath of the incident. At this time, Nick Fury, who hung up the phone, also received the information from his subordinates. While dozens of phone calls were made to report them, they also found out the general content of the matter through the internet. After the integration, he appeared in front of Nick Fury. The military, the Senate, and the government are all important. The energy of Pioneer Technology is really extraordinary. After reading the information in front of him, Nick Fury pinched his dark forehead and said with a headache. You know, the reason why he sent people to infiltrate was to avoid being discovered and to prevent others from telling the truth. After all, many of SHIELD's actions are shady and are of the kind that would lead to death in the light of day. And now, Natasha has almost exposed them. There were only 2 choices before him now. Or, deny it and refuse to admit Natasha's problem. Then Natasha herself will be imprisoned for espionage, and she may be held in high-level detention for the rest of her life, but the good thing is that SHIELD doesn't have to end up. The second one is to admit at the end that he believes that the reason why the other party made the matter so big instead of directly sending Natasha to the police station is because he must have learned that the power behind Natasha is not simple, and also got validation from Ross. At this moment, Nick Fury was even more confused when he saw Rose's call records, especially when he tried to help Pioneer Technology blackmail him. You must know that the military and them have always been incompatible with each other, and because they are cautious and rigorous in doing things, they have never left anything in the hands of the military. Therefore, the military has always been extremely dissatisfied with them, but it has no way to deal with them. And now, what he can predict is that if he goes there, the other party will definitely open his mouth like a lion, and it is not an exaggeration to even vomit out everything he has eaten before. To be honest, Nick Fury's rationality actually makes him want to give up on Natasha. However, with such an excellent subordinate, even she alone can complete various tasks that a branch base in a state cannot. It can be said that he has thousands of qualified subordinates, but only a few outstanding subordinates. If I give up now. At this moment, in the already dark room, Nick Fury's eyes were even more filled with thoughts. Ha 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 ha, Killian, you really make me and the military look embarrassed. You know, the person in charge of that guy's backstage has never dealt with us. Every time I see his face, I feel like someone owes him millions. Now, I'm finally going to let him try this feeling. On the other side, after Ross brought a battalion of people to Killian's island, Ross got off the car and came to Killian with excitement on his face, and gave him a warm hug. Then he laughed and said, "Really, it's a pity that he only sent one person here, otherwise I think it would have made you more shameless, General Ross." Regarding Rose's words, Killian pretended to regret. "Ha ha ha, if he can send one of his subordinates to you, it means that that subordinate is very important to him. At least he is a senior agent. If he sends another one, he will be furious to death on the spot. It would be strange." After hearing Killian's words, Rose laughed. At this moment, no matter how he looked at it, he felt that his vision had never been better. There was even a moment when he was thinking about whether to introduce his daughter to this guy. Young, rich, talented, and a standard American, he is simply the perfect choice for a son-in-law. Is that so? Then what department is behind this agent? Can General Ross tell you more carefully? After hearing Rose's words, Killian rolled his eyes, and then said with a curious expression, "Well, actually, it's not that I can't say it. Now that you've come into contact with it, I'll tell you that SHIELD is affiliated with, omit a few minutes." "I see. Then according to you, their main responsibility is Homeland Security. Does that mean they think my company's products will threaten the security of the United States?" After listening to Rose's speech, Killian suddenly realized. In the past 2 days, our researchers have discovered that the data is suspected to have been leaked. It seems that they discovered the use of Tyrant on the battlefield. Otherwise they have no reason to want to infiltrate your research base. To be honest, Ross also investigated this doubt on the way here. The only party who leaked the information may be their side, but for this, he had nothing to hide and said it directly. After all, they are now tied together whether in terms of interests or other things. Neither of them wants anything to happen to the other party, so there is no need to hide these little things. Quote. Then what should we do next? Killian originally thought that SHIELD was targeting him because of his other experiments, but he didn't expect that the source was still on Rose's side. We must take advantage of this time to hurt them so that they will not dare to investigate secretly like this. Otherwise, they will be like a group of rats hiding in the shadows, staring at you in the dark. It's just that they don't know the importance of this person in SHIELD yet. If he is just a little guy, then it's going to be difficult. When he was talking about the last word, Rose looked at the woman who was stunned by Killian's men not far away with a sad look on his face. After all, the identity of this agent can be enough to affect the extent to which he opens his mouth to Nick Fury's lion later. A little boy. That's not the case. General Ross, although I don't know who the unit behind her is, she herself is well known in the world of agents. Born in the former Soviet Union, from the extremely terrifying special training institution, Red Room, in the form of cultivating GU, each session has to be trained for several years or even 10 years, with hundreds of people performing assassinations, dances, and charms wait for skills training, and then select from them to cultivate only one real, Black Widow. And all the other students in the same class will die at the hands of this, Black Widow, who comes out. That's why I think that having such a famous agent come to your door must have been targeted by other overseas organizations. Although I don't know why she went to work for SHIELD as you mentioned, her status is definitely not high. It's as simple as being a minion. Otherwise, I think that Nick Fury's men must be full of talents. Even the famous former Soviet agents can be used as soldiers. After looking at Rose's sad face, Killian said with a smile, "Oh, she is the famous Black Widow." After hearing Killian's words, Rose suddenly became interested and looked at the unconscious woman not far away with an extremely surprised expression. You must know that the code name Black Widow is not a simple title in front of major military organizations in the world. Basically every Black Widow here has extremely top-notch lurking, combat, and infiltration abilities. It can be said that basically every major country, except the Soviet Union, which trained them, has been tortured by the Black Widows. These people can be said to be real ghosts walking at night. They are like spiders, coming and going silently, climbing rocks to escape, and they also have the ruthlessness of Black Widows. You never know whether the woman who was chatting with you about life 1 second will break your neck in the blink of an eye. Almost no one knows the true identities of these Black Widows. It was not until the disintegration of the Soviet Union that some relevant information about these Black Widows was revealed. What he didn't expect was that this time, he actually saw a living person. At this moment, Ross even felt like he was following a star and meeting himself. For a moment, everyone couldn't help but take a closer look. It has to be said that even though Natasha is a woman, her muscles are quite strong compared to normal men. Ross even felt that the reason why the other party was so famous was not just because of his excellent skills, but there must be other reasons that made the Black Widows so special. However, it is a pity that the other party is from S.H.I.E.L.D., otherwise this person would have no backing. He really wanted to drag this guy to his research base to study how the legendary Red Room trained such a group of top female agents who were feared. He didn't believe that it could be achieved through simple special training. Otherwise, this world has long been dominated by individual soldiers, so why would there be an army? On the other side, looking at Ross's unexplained look, he moved closer to Natasha. If it weren't for the crowd, he would have thought that this guy was about to imp. After such a long period of time, with the arrival of the men dispatched by Kennedy and several important government officials, including the Deputy Minister of Finance, Kylian's support was finally in place. Soon, along with a sudden ripple in the air, everyone felt the sound of huge engines coming from far to near. And just when everyone was still looking around with puzzled faces, they only saw the empty ground not far away, and a scene inside the cabin came into view. A man wearing black, the black man in the coat and wearing a one-eyed black eye patch, also walked down immediately. At this moment, looking at the person coming, Krynn knew that the rightful owner was here. I didn't expect that I would be so popular and that so many important American officials would come. Hello, Nick Fury, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D., you must be Mr. Krynn. Nice to meet you. Looking at the people in front of him, Nick Fury walked towards them. After finishing speaking, he came to Krynn and stretched out his right hand with a smile on his face. But the next moment, two tall figures stood between them. At this moment, Nick Fury only felt like he was standing in front of two cold-blooded robots. Their eyes did not reveal any emotion even when they were facing him. He even had a hunch that if Krynn wanted them to kill him, they could really kill him on the spot. For a moment, Nick Fury became very curious about the methods of the technology company president in front of him. It's not that he doesn't have such training methods. He even trained them himself, but gave up in the end. This kind of humanoid weapon that only knows how to accept orders is not as good as an agent with emotions and independent thinking. But what he was curious about was that the president of a small technology company that had just developed for a few years actually had this kind of cultivation method. For a moment, Nick Fury also showed a playful look. As for the two bodyguards standing in front of him, Nick Fury just looked at them with a smile. He knew that this was the young and energetic CEO's counterattack against his previous dispatch of personnel to investigate him. But it doesn't matter to him. Even if it can be solved so easily, let alone two people blocking him, if he finds a group of people to block him, he will not complain at all, but will greet them with a smile. Okay, let's go down first. I'm sorry, my subordinates overreacted a bit. After all, I have only encountered this kind of thing in the company. After calling away his two men, Krynn stood up with the same smile, and then spoke to Nick Fury. Haha, it's understandable, but after all, these are the responsibilities of S.H.I.E.L.D. It has the right to monitor major institutions around the world. I'm sorry for intruding. After hearing Kylian's words, Nick Fury also smiled and said, Really, why don't I know when the World Security Council has ever recognized such an institution? At this time, Ross's voice just sounded. ... These are highly confidential. Perhaps General Ross has not yet reached the corresponding authority. After glancing at Natasha, who was unconscious in the distance, Nick Fury calmly said to Rose in front of him. It seems that the two of them have not come into contact once or twice. It is really a bit surprising to be able to come into contact in this way now. Mr. Nick Fury, I think it is necessary to state that no agency in the United States has the right to go beyond the authorization of the U.S. government and conduct illegal inspections of any company in the country. Not to mention Pioneer Technology. Now it is not only a high-tech company, but also cooperates with the military and has major strategic research projects. By experimenting under this base, you are already trying to steal national secrets, which is a serious violation. The U.S. Corporate Protection Act, the Civil Protection Act, and, based on the above, you have committed an act of naked espionage. At this time, the U.S. Secretary of State stood up, looked at Nick Fury in front of him, and spoke righteously. At this moment, he seemed to be the just and great presiding judge of the court. Quote. After hearing the man's words, Nick Fury was speechless at this moment. This matter was originally their fault. If Natasha had not been caught, he would not even want to deal with them. But, let's stop with the pointless nonsense, so now what do you want? Thinking of this, Nick Fury completely showed off his cards. He finally figured it out. In order to deal with him, Krynn had roped in half of the top officials of the US government. If the conversation continued, all he could do was make many mistakes, so he might as well get straight to the point. And he still has too many things to deal with now, so he won't waste too much time here. After hearing Nick Fury's words, Krynn and Rose gestured to other people around them and asked them to leave, ensuring that there were no more redundant people on the scene. First, regarding this incident, I need your guarantee that S.H.I.E.L.D. will not investigate Pioneer Technology and its subsidiaries for any reason after this. At this time, Krynn also spoke immediately. Then, after seeing Nick Fury being silent, he continued, if there are similar people infiltrating in the future, if the identity is unclear after investigation, it will be attributed to someone from your agency. Impossible. What do you think S.H.I.E.L.D. is? A nanny. Since I agreed, I won't investigate you again, so I won't investigate you again. This last point of yours is impossible. After hearing Krynn's additional terms, Nick Fury immediately responded. Are you kidding me? Isn't it important to admit or deny it at the beginning? If there is a problem later, he only needs to send agents who are not named and do not carry any identification. Not only can S.H.I.E.L.D. no longer be able to monitor them, but it also has to be a nanny. How could such a treaty be agreed to in front of so many American dignitaries? Haha, Director Nick Fury, you have to understand that it is difficult for small companies like us. After all, some of the technologies we have finally developed will not be able to deal with similar problems well. Does that mean we are encouraging other companies to steal our company's confidential information? Not to mention, even if I can endure it, what about the US government? This is the United States of freedom and democracy. If the American people know that there is a superior institution on their own territory that can trample on the law arbitrarily, wait until they have researched. The moment you get results, jump out and take them away. I don't know how many patriotic citizens this will hurt. After hearing Nick Fury's words, Krynn said helplessly. To be honest, if S.H.I.E.L.D. continues to be shameless, the worst he can do is expose the opponent's face to the world and give them a surprise insight into the plan in advance. At worst, he would just slap his ass and go to other countries. He didn't believe it. With so much technology, how could he be welcomed if he wanted to join him? Of course, this is the last choice, not to mention that even if Krynn shows up, with the support of Kennedy and Ross, S.H.I.E.L.D. will not really dare to confront him head-on. After all, these people can control S.H.I.E.L.D.'s money and arms. Money in your left hand and weapons in your right hand have cut off what you can use to maintain your aloof self-esteem. Continue. After hearing Krynn's words, Nick Fury knew the other party's attitude, and then he didn't say much but let him continue with a gloomy face. Second, regarding this incident, S.H.I.E.L.D. must make compensation. Of course, I don't care about the confidentiality regulations you are talking about. To the outside world, you can say that it is a spy sent by any other company. I don't care, but it must make the minimum compensation of $100 million and corresponding penalties for relevant personnel. This is our bottom line. No matter what, since you want to send people to steal relevant information about our company, if you are caught, compensation is inevitable. Even in the future, I will recommend to the President that similar industrial espionage cases should be punished quickly and severely. After all, it sounds nice. Some people are using the guise of national security. If there are similar people in the future, using the same banner, but they sell our company's relevant confidential information, then there is no place to cry. So it must be stopped in the cradle, and we must be ruthless from now on. Krynn was not polite at all to the wealthy businessman in front of him and spoke directly to him. Even when talking about compensation, when he saw that he wanted to say something about confidentiality, Krynn also interrupted him directly. Know what the other person is about to say. Of course, the so-called punishment is basically just a joke. As the director of a global intelligence organization like Nick Fury, even if others really punish him, who would dare to carry it out? But these don't matter to Krynn, all he wants is an attitude. After all, as the company continues to expand, spies from inside and outside, including the US government, may be sent to investigate the news. Therefore, when encountering Natasha's incident, Krynn was prepared to make a big fuss and give the US executives a first chance. Let's get a head start. He was so harsh the first time, and if he comes again, you have to carefully consider whether you have the weight of the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Sure, no problem. After a moment of silence, looking at Krynn in front of him, Nick Fury finally compromised. Anyway, the final compensation is not his money. As for punishment, internal punishment, just exile to the Maldives and not be allowed to work, wouldn't that be enough? He still didn't believe that this small company boss could still put his spy in his shield. Third, as for this incident, as long as you go through the corresponding compensation procedures, then this matter will be completely over, and we will not continue to pursue it afterwards, but I hope you will not hold on to the consequences of this incident again. Make a fuss about the topic. And in the next moment, Krynn, to Nick Fury's expectation, did not open his mouth like the two lions just now, but said as if he wanted to take the initiative to sue for peace. No problem at all. I don't know why, Nick Fury always felt that something was wrong at this moment, but looking at the other party's appearance, Nick Fury couldn't analyze it for a while, so he had to bite the bullet and nodded. After that, Krynn successively proposed the conditions negotiated with Ross and the government officials who had just arrived. With the cooperation of several people, Nick Fury also agreed with a gloomy face. 10th, don't go too far. And just when Krynn wanted to continue talking, Nick Fury at this moment gritted his teeth and said in a deep voice with black lines on his head. He originally thought that after the other party learned his identity from Ross, he just made 2 random requests and let it go. However, it turned out that the other party seemed to be addicted, and he would keep picking up the wool after being caught once. Okay, let's leave it at that. I hope Director Fury can keep his promise. After hearing Nick Fury's words, Krynn, who originally wanted to see if the old guy could continue to remain calm, stopped in time. After all, the first thing they discussed here was to get the other party to agree to Articles 6 and 7. As for more, it was entirely because Krynn wanted to test Nick Fury's tolerance. It seemed a little higher than they expected. To be honest, except for the first 3 items, the rest are basically the pull between the military and the government and S.H.I.E.L.D. The reason why Krynn brought it up is mainly because they are allies with each other. You can't let them stand up and wave the flag for you, and then you take advantage of it and run away, and let them go all the way in vain, right? And Nick Fury also knew about this. Rather than negotiating with Krynn, the company boss, he was negotiating with high-level military and political representatives in the United States at the same time. It's just that this time he was really caught crossing the line, so he had to spit it out. Snort. After giving Krynn a cold look, Nick Fury walked up to the aircraft not far away, and then revealed that the dusk scene inside the cabin slowly disappeared. Everyone knew that Nick Fury had already taken the plane. Left here. Okay, Mr. Krynn, we have successfully completed the matter this time, so we won't stay here for much longer. After seeing Nick Fury leave, several government officials on the side shook hands with Krynn happily and said, for them, it can be said that they have made enough benefits this time, so they have to rush back to discuss the specific division. Of course, I would like to thank a few gentlemen for their help this time. This is a Pioneer-level mobile phone from Pioneer Technology. It is different from the ones on the market. Each of them uses a cutting-edge design and is never sold externally. Looking at several government officials, Krynn also said with a smile. After finishing speaking, he also signaled to his subordinates, and one person took out a high-end technology gift box containing a Pioneer Technology mobile phone and gave it to them. Nearly every one of these costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. After all, the performance of everything is top-notch. Several officials also obviously knew this, so everyone stopped smiling even more, and then it was a scene of you and me, and they wanted to be brothers with Krynn on the spot. It's just hard to say how much truth there is. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.